Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Love series.
Ooh, twisted love.
Yeah.
Like it.
Today, we're diving deep into a case where love took a dark turn.
Okay.
You know those stories that remind us how powerful emotions can be?
Yeah.
And how quickly things can spiral out of control?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're unpacking today.
I'm ready.
It's a story about a love triangle in Kanpur, India back in 2015 that ended in tragedy.
Exactly. It's a case that really forces you to think about how jealousy and obsession can be so destructive.
Okay, so paint the picture for me.
Okay.
Who are the people involved in this story?
At the center of it all is Dimple Yadav, a 24-year-old college student.
Okay.
By all accounts, she was ambitious and outgoing.
Mm-hmm.
Dimple had been dating Rohit Sharma, a 26-year-old businessman, for 2 years.
Okay.
Rohit was deeply in love and ready to propose.
Wow.
But there was another man in Dimple's life, Ankit Verma.
The classic love triangle.
Right.
So Ankit was the jealous one.
Yes. Ankit was a 25-year-old mechanic, and he and Dimple had been childhood friends. It seems that somewhere along the way, his feelings for her became more than just friendship. He was carrying a torch for her, and it turned into a dangerous obsession.
So how did this obsession start to affect their lives?
Well, it seems Ankit couldn't bear the thought of Dimple being with Rohit.
Yeah.
He started pressuring her, constantly calling and messaging, even showing up at her college unannounced.
Oh, wow.
His jealousy was growing, and his actions became increasingly erratic.
Mm-hmm.
It was a clear sign that things were heading in a very dangerous direction.
It's so sad how someone's inability to deal with their own feelings can have such a devastating impact on others.
Right.
What did Dimple do about Ankit's behavior?
It appears she tried to downplay his advances at first,
Okay.
maybe hoping he would back off if she just kept things casual.
Yeah.
But as his obsession intensified, she started to pull away, trying to distance herself from him.
I imagine that only made Ankit feel more rejected and fueled his anger. That's a really scary situation to be in.
You're absolutely right. Ankit's resentment and feelings of betrayal grew as Dimple tried to create space between them.
Yeah.
He felt like she was choosing Rohit over him, and he couldn't cope with that.
Wow.
And tragically, this all culminated on a night in July 2015,
Okay.
a night that changed everything.
Okay, I have a feeling this is where things take a dark turn.
Yes.
What happened that night?
Dimple and Rohit were having a romantic evening out.
Yeah.
They were discussing their future, excited about their plans together.
Mm-hmm.
Unbeknownst to them, Ankit was consumed by his own twisted reality.
What do you mean?
Well, driven by his jealousy, Ankit had been stalking them.
Oh, no.
As the couple left a cafe and walked toward Rohit's car, Ankit confronted them.
Wow.
He was enraged, accusing Dimple of betraying him in their friendship.
So while they were looking forward to their future, he was lurking in the shadows.
Yeah.
I imagine that confrontation was terrifying.
Absolutely. Ankit had reached a breaking point. His
Uh-huh.
jealousy had twisted into something dark and dangerous. The argument escalated quickly and fueled by rage. Ankit pulled out a knife.
Oh, no, did he?
Yes! In a fit of jealous fury, Ankit attacked Rohit, stabbing him multiple times.
Oh, my God.
Dimple screamed for help, but by the time anyone could intervene, it was too late.
Wow.
Rohit tragically died from his injuries.
Oh, my goodness.
And Ankit, after trying to run away, was caught by people who had witnessed the attack and handed over to the police.
It's chilling how quickly love and obsession can turn into violence.
Yeah.
What a horrifying and senseless loss of life. What happened to Ankit and Dimple after that awful night?
Ankit was arrested and charged with murder.
Okay.
Dimple, completely devastated, had to relive the whole ordeal as she testified against him.
This must have been an incredibly difficult time for her.
It was.
It's hard to imagine the pain and trauma she endured.
You're right. It's important to remember that while justice was being served, Dimple was left to pick up the pieces of her life. It's truly a heartbreaking story about the destructive power of unchecked emotions.
It really highlights how vital it is to recognize the warning signs of toxic relationships and take action before things escalate.
Yes. It's a reminder that we need to talk openly about healthy relationships, consent, and respect. We have to challenge those harmful stereotypes that perpetuate the idea that love equals possession or control.
This is so important.
Absolutely. Love should empower, not imprison.
Right.
It should be based on trust, mutual respect, and open communication.
This is such a powerful point, and it's something we should all keep in mind as we navigate our own relationships.
Yeah,
But we've covered a lot of ground already.
we have.
Why don't we take a moment, and when we come back, we'll delve deeper into the legal proceedings and the impact of this case.
Sounds good. I'm ready to unpack the complexities of the trial and the broader implications of this tragic event.
Okay.
All right. You know, we often hear about these types of cases and think about the perpetrator,
Yeah,
but it's equally important to understand the victim's perspective. Dimple's world was shattered by this tragedy.
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
What happened to Dimple after that horrific night?
After the trial, Dimple decided to leave Kanpur.
Okay.
It's understandable that she would want a fresh start, a chance to rebuild her life away from the shadow of that tragedy.
That must have been incredibly difficult for her.
It was.
To not only survive such a traumatic experience, but to find the strength to move forward and create a new life for herself
Right.
is remarkable.
It really is. And you know what's even more amazing?
What's that?
Dimple didn't retreat into silence. Instead, she chose to use her platform to speak out against toxic relationships and raise awareness about the warning signs that often go unnoticed.
Wow, so she turned her pain into a force for good.
Yeah.
That's incredibly inspiring. What kind of advocacy work did she do?
Dimple became particularly passionate about educating young people, especially young women, about the red flags in relationships.
Okay.
She spoke at colleges, community centers, and even participated in online forums. Dimple was determined to share her story and empower others to recognize the subtle signs of possessiveness, control, and emotional abuse.
That's so powerful. Hearing a real-life story from someone who has been through something so traumatic can be much more impactful than reading statistics or facts.
Exactly. Dimple's story resonated with a lot of people. It forced them to confront an uncomfortable truth. Toxic relationships are far more common than we might think.
Did she encounter any resistance to her message?
Sadly, yes. In some communities, particularly those with more traditional values, there was a reluctance to acknowledge the prevalence of toxic relationships. Some viewed her message as a threat to cultural norms.
It's unfortunate that people would rather ignore a problem than face it head-on,
Yeah.
especially when it involves protecting vulnerable individuals. But it sounds like Dimple wasn't deterred.
Not at all. She faced criticism with grace and determination, emphasizing that her goal wasn't to attack tradition, but to protect people from harm.
Right.
Dimple stressed that love should never come at the cost of one's safety, dignity, or freedom.
It's so important to remember that love should empower, not control. Did Dimple ever talk about the role of bystanders in these situations? Sometimes people might suspect something is wrong, but don't know how to intervene.
That's a great observation. Dimple believed that breaking the cycle of toxic relationships required a collective effort.
Okay.
She urged everyone, friends, family members, even casual observers, to be vigilant, to speak up if they notice red flags, and offer support to those who might be trapped in unhealthy situations.
It's about creating a culture of awareness and intervention, right?
Yes.
We can't just turn a blind eye and hope things will magically get better.
Precisely. Dimple's message resonated with many people. She became a symbol of resilience, a voice for the voiceless.
Yeah.
Her bravery was truly inspiring to countless others who had suffered in silence.
Her story is such a powerful example of the human spirit's ability to overcome even the darkest of times.
It is. Dimple chose to transform her pain into purpose, turning her tragedy into a catalyst for positive change. That's an incredible legacy to leave behind.
It certainly is. But this case also forces us to confront the darker aspects of human nature. The potential for love to become twisted into obsession and violence. What are some of the key takeaways from this story from your perspective?
I think this case is a stark reminder that we need to have open and honest conversations about healthy relationships.
Yeah.
We need to teach young people about consent, respect, and boundaries.
Right.
And we have to challenge those societal norms that perpetuate harmful gender stereotypes.
You're absolutely right. We need to foster a culture of emotional intelligence where individuals are equipped to identify and address unhealthy patterns of behavior both in themselves and in others.
Exactly. We need to create support systems for those who are struggling in toxic relationships.
Right.
We need to ensure that victims of abuse have access to resources and legal protection.
This case highlights the urgent need for prevention, intervention, and education.
Absolutely. And while there's no easy fix, I believe that by shining a light on these issues, by sharing stories like Dimple's, and by fostering open dialogue, we can begin to create a safer and more compassionate world.
It's definitely a step in the right direction. Before we wrap up this part of our discussion, I'd like to talk about the families involved.
Okay.
Often we focus on the victim and the perpetrator, but what about the ripple effects on their loved ones?
That's such an important point. This tragedy didn't just impact Dimple and Ankit, it had a profound effect on their families as well. Think about Rohit's family. They lost a beloved son and brother, and they had to endure the agonizing ordeal of a trial. Can you imagine having to relive the details of your loved one's death in such a public way?
That's an unimaginable pain to bear.
It is. And then there's Ankit's family. They weren't responsible for his actions, yet they too are left to grapple with the consequences. They're likely dealing with a complex mix of emotions. Grief for the life their son threw away, shame over his actions, and maybe even anger towards Dimple.
It's a complex and often overlooked dimension of these cases. The families on both sides become collateral damage, forever linked by a shared experience of loss and trauma.
It's a sobering reminder that crime doesn't occur in a vacuum. It ripples outward, impacting countless lives and leaving lasting scars on entire communities.
We've covered so much in this deep dive already,
Yeah.
but we're not done yet. When we return, I want to explore the legal implications of this case and how it led to significant changes in how India addresses the issue of stalking.
I'm ready to unpack that. It's a critical aspect of this story that deserves further exploration.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the emotional intensity of this case, but I think it's also important to step back and consider the legal and societal implications. This wasn't just a personal tragedy. It was a crime that raised questions about accountability, justice, and the role of the legal system.
You're right. It forced society to look at how they view and address certain issues, especially the issue of stalking. Absolutely. This case sparked a lot of debate in India about stalking harassment and the need for stronger laws to protect victims of obsessive behavior. Before this case, stalking was often dismissed as a minor offense, a mere nuisance, but the Dimple Yadav case brought to light the potential for stalking to escalate into violence, even murder.
So this case served as a wake-up call for the legal system. Did it lead to any changes in how stalking is handled in India?
Yes, it did. In the aftermath of this case, there was a push for legal reforms, advocacy groups, legal experts, and even some politicians called for stricter anti-stalking laws. They argued that stalking should be recognized as a serious crime with harsher penalties and better protection for victims.
So in a way, Dimple's tragedy became a catalyst for positive change.
Exactly. Her case highlighted the gaps in the existing legal framework and put pressure on lawmakers to take action. And in 2013, India amended its penal code to specifically criminalize stalking, making it a non-bailable offense. This was a significant step forward in recognizing the seriousness of this crime and providing legal recourse for victims.
That's a testament to the power of one person's story to create lasting change. It's tragic that it took such a horrific event to bring about these reforms, but at least some good came out of it.
It's a bittersweet victory for sure, but it shows that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope for progress.
It also underscores the importance of speaking out, of raising awareness, and of holding those in power accountable for creating a safer society for everyone.
Absolutely. This case reminds us that we all have a role to play in preventing violence and protecting the vulnerable. We can't just sit back and assume that the legal system will take care of everything we need to be proactive, to educate ourselves, and to speak up when we see injustice.
This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey from the complexities of love and obsession to the devastating consequences of unchecked emotions and the importance of legal reform. But I think at its core, this is a story about the power of the human spirit. Dimple's resilience in the face of unimaginable tragedy is truly inspiring.
I agree. Her story reminds us that even in the darkest of times, we have the capacity for growth, healing, and positive change. And it's a testament to the power of one person's voice to make a difference in the world.
This case has certainly given us a lot to think about the nature of love, the dangers of obsession, the importance of boundaries, and the role we all play in creating a safer society. And to our listeners, if you or someone you know is struggling with a toxic relationship, please know that you're not alone. There are resources available, and help is just a phone call away.
Remember, love should never come at the cost of your safety or well-being, and if you see something, say something. Your voice could save a life.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Dimple Yadav love triangle case. If you'd like to explore more twisted love stories, make sure to follow and subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and as always, stay vigilant.